What's up guys, this is Ray, and today we'll be talking about the 2018 Japanese movie My Dad is a Hero Wrestler, directed by Fujimura Kyohei and starring Tanahashi Hiroshi, who I understand is an actual professional wrestler. Now, I'm not going to pretend I'm the biggest fan or follower of professional wrestling, especially Japanese professional wrestling, but Tanahashi Hiroshi, he works under New Japan Pro Wrestling, and from what I understand, this movie also stars or also features a bunch of cameos of other pro wrestlers who work under NJPW. I think the story is pretty interesting for this movie. It's apparently based off of a series of children's picture books, and it's about this young boy named Shota, and you know, he has this giant dad by the name of Takashi. Shota's about 9-10 years old. He's in elementary school. I forget exactly how old, but he's in elementary school. And he goes throughout all of his childhood not really understanding his dad's job. And his parents won't even tell it to Shota. They assure him that when he gets bigger, they'll tell him what his dad's work is. But then just one day, Shota sneaks off inside Takashi's car to kind of see what his dad is off to doing every day, and he discovers to his surprise that his dad works as a pro wrestler. But not only that, he actually works as a heel wrestler. For those not familiar with pro wrestling jargon, heel is essentially what they call a bad guy wrestler, a villain wrestler, a guy playing the part for the hero to take down. And Takashi, his moniker is Cockroach Mask, and you know, he kind of plays his job as a villain just so for the other youngster wrestlers to take down and get over. And as a matter of fact, when Takashi, you know, 10 years prior to the start of the story, he was actually an ace in the wrestling world. He was an all-star. He was at the top of his game, but an injury kind of forced him to kind of take it more easy down the road, especially because he was also raising a family. But because Takashi loves wrestling, he continues the profession. But when Shota discovers that the character that Takashi plays is met with audience jeers and boos, he gets really embarrassed and flustered and just walks out. So throughout the story, we get not only Takashi trying to get Shota to understand the importance of his job as a heel wrestler, and also to get Shota to understand his love for the profession, but also Shota trying to hide the existence of his dad's job from his classmates. And a lot of the tension comes from Shota not really understanding how professional wrestling works. You know, he just thrust into this not really knowing anything, and you get all of a sudden his first day at a pro wrestling event, he discovers his dad is like the uncoolest bad guy in the world. And so when it comes to the positives of My Dad is a Heel Wrestler, this movie has a lot of charm. It has a lot of heart. You remember that Aronofsky movie, The Wrestler. You know, it almost sounds like it starts off like that. The main star is this kind of washed-up wrestler who's still trying to continue the profession in one way or another. And you know, he gets to a point where he is trying to relive his glory days, but he can't exactly do that because of age. With Takashi, he's trying to watch out for this old knee injury and just overall age and the punishment that the sport takes on his body. But the main difference with this movie and The Wrestler is that this movie is kind of mainly aimed for kids. After all, the main character of the story is not Takashi, but the son Shota, who's played by Terada Kokoro. And I gotta say, Terada, the young boy, is probably the best performer in this entire movie. He's the source of all the heart. I think he just carries a lot of charm despite his young age. He displays a lot of emotional range in his performance. Everything from just being embarrassed from with his dad in his job to hiding his dad's true identity to his classmates, and even just trying to carry on lying to his classmates essentially to kind of win their favor and try to keep everything under the rug. And this movie packs a lot of emotional punch, especially in the phases where Shota is, you know, coming to terms with dealing with this embarrassment, dealing with this shame, and the way he pushes Takashi away and the way Takashi tries to, you know, get in close. But you kind of feel this rift in the relationship as the story goes along. The more Takashi tries to get Shota to understand, the more he progressively gets embarrassed. And speaking of performances, you know, this movie also stars Nakarisa, who I absolutely love in her performances, and she plays like this journalist who happens to also be a mega wrestling fan, and on top of that, she's a mega fan of Cockroach Mask, especially because her being an older fan, she knows the man behind Cockroach Mask. She knows the journey his career has taken, and she's followed him the whole way through. And that she represents kind of the older fans that are kind of, that know the industry, that know the ins and outs of pro wrestling. But then you have Shota, who kind of represents, of course, obviously the kids who kind of are stuck in this fantasy world. They think that that everything inside the ring is real, and that's kind of the source of Shota's embarrassment, is that he thinks that his dad is an actual bad guy wrestler, and that he wants his dad to actually change or stop being a villain and become a hero, because it's embarrassing to become a villain. And it's cute. When I was younger, I watched pro wrestling too. I've since stopped since a long time ago. If you ask me anything about pro wrestling, I wouldn't be able to answer any of your questions. But I remember when I was a child, I used to, to me, one of the greatest mysteries in the world was pro wrestling real? I mean, of course, everything is, as we know, is scripted, everything is pre-planned, but as a child, you don't really know that. You're kind of in this fantasy, and that's something I really like about the story, is that this movie kind of keeps the narrative in that point of view. It's like through the eyes of Shota, everything that happens in the ring is real. Cockroach Mask is a real bad guy who cheats against his opponents to take the win. He doesn't know anything beyond that kind of fantasy. And one thing that I thought was pretty interesting is that they kind of carry this act of kayfabe to the home, if you will. Like, basically as part of the story, Cockroach Mask gets caught up in this big tournament, and he keeps updating Shota, just a few more wins and I can become champion, and it kind of plays around with this idea that, even to the audience, it doesn't reveal that everything is pre-planned to the audience. The audience is also kind of kept in this fantasy. Well, the adult fans, we know that everything is pre-written and predetermined, but the way the movie tries to keep the audience point of view in is that it tries to keeps you in this fantasy, because the way the characters talk to each other, not only with other pro wrestlers, but within Takashi and his family, it's kind of hard to determine to interpret if everyone is talking about wrestling as if it were real. Therefore, everyone just keeps kayfabe. Even to us, the audience. And I thought that was a pretty interesting choice, because when everyone is watching the wrestling matches, everyone is glued to it and cheering as if you're watching a real competitive sports event like boxing or basketball. Everyone gets on their feet, everyone's at the edge of their seats, and I think that's a really interesting choice. And speaking of the wrestling matches, of course, the physical action, because everything is done by professional wrestlers, everything felt legit. You didn't have actors who just acted the characters in one scene and then have the stuntmen do their work in another scene. Now, basically all the wrestlers were doing their acting and pro wrestling. And when it comes to the negatives of my dad as a heel wrestler, I think Tanahashi isn't the best actor. I mean, he does all the physical scenes extremely well, of course, him being an actual professional wrestler. But when it comes to his acting, it's okay. I guess, like, this movie doesn't demand the biggest range and acting chops when it comes to Tanahashi's character. For the most part, I think he has like maybe 3 facial expressions the whole entire time. But, he's not the best actor. I think he does enough. It's like okay, like mediocre level, but it's I think he's just okay as an actor. Like I said, most of the attention will be focused on Shota. He is like the honest true star of the story. And overall, what do I think about my dad as a heel wrestler? I absolutely loved it. Like I mentioned earlier, this movie packs a lot of heart, has a lot of charm, and even though this movie, being based off of a children's picture book, is aimed mainly towards kids and families, there is enough material here for adults to enjoy. And I think when it comes to the scenes of the professional wrestling, the kids would enjoy it, just because what kid doesn't like pro wrestling? It's just fun to watch, and I think adults would like the pro wrestling scenes as well, because it's kind of what this movie has for action sequences. And it's actually pretty exciting. Especially you can't exactly watch this movie as like a genuine sports movie, although you could. There are a lot of things to enjoy in the similar way as you would with a genuine sports movie. This movie has enough action to get you hyped up for that same kind of excitement. And like I said earlier, one thing I think that was pretty interesting is the way the story, the narrative, keeps like kind of keeps the audience in this fantasy world, kind of trying to think if pro wrestling in this story is real or not. You know, they don't break kayfabe at all for the audience, whether you're in the backstage or whether you're watching them perform on stage. You know, it doesn't break character at all. And you know, I think at first I thought it was kind of jarring, but then the more I thought about it, the more I appreciated it. Do I recommend this movie? I say definitely yes, especially if you're looking for a heartwarming family flick that also has some pretty neat action sequences as well. And if you're an NJPW fan, I definitely recommend watching this movie too. I mean, I don't follow NJPW or any kind of pro wrestling, like I said, but from what I read up on, there are a lot of cameos in here that'll make any fan of the brand just, you know, jump up with excitement. Whether it's, you know, wrestlers working backstage or just at a random ramen restaurant, you know, there are cameos left and right. A little warning though, maybe you want to pack a pack of tissues when watching this, because this movie can get you if you're unprepared. But yeah, those are my thoughts on My Dad is a Heel Wrestler. What do you guys think? Please let me know in the comment section below. Please like, share, and subscribe. And if you really enjoy my content, please know that you can support Eiga-Man via Patreon from as little as $1. And yeah, that's about it for me, guys. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching and hope to catch you all again in the next video. Take it easy.